Hey there, football fans. Welcome back to the channel. Well, folks, the first round of the college football playoff is officially in the books. And let me tell you, it was a weekend full of blowouts. I mean, we're talking about some serious domination on the field. Penn State, Texas, and Ohio State made their opponents look like they were playing a different sport altogether. If you missed it, don't worry. We're breaking down all the action and trying to figure out why these games ended up being so one-sided. But before we dive in, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a breakdown. Share this video with your friends because I know they'll want to hear about these epic routes. Let's get into it. Penn State vs SMU, the PICK6 show. Alright, let's kick things off with Penn State and SMU. The game took place in Happy Valley, and to say that SMU was overmatched would be an understatement. Penn State came out swinging, and it didn't take long for them to show who was in charge. The Nittany Lions jumped out to an early lead, and if you blinked, you might have missed their two early pick sixes. Yes, you heard that right, two pick sixes. Those interceptions absolutely set the tone for the game, and SMU just couldn't recover. The final score? 38-10, and honestly, it wasn't even that close. The combination of strong defense and powerful line play was too much for SMU to handle. They simply couldn't establish a rhythm on offense. And with the way Penn State's defense was pressuring the quarterback and making plays, it was clear that SMU was outmatched from the start. But hey, at least SMU made it to the playoff, right? Texas vs Clemson. The Longhorns show their muscle. Next up, we've got Texas taking on Clemson in what was supposed to be a much tighter matchup than it actually turned out to be. Yes, the final score was 38-24, but trust me, it was not as close as that sounds. Texas dominated this one from the opening whistle, and it all came down to line play. Texas's offensive line was bulldozing the Clemson defensive front, opening up huge holes for their running backs. Jaden Blue had a pair of huge touchdown runs, including one for 77 yards and another for 38 yards. They were gashing the Tigers' defense all day long, and there was no answer from Clemson. On the flip side, Texas's defense lived in Clemson's backfield. They were putting constant pressure on Cade Klubnik, and let's be honest, the Clemson offense never had a chance to get going. The Longhorns took a 3-score lead early and just cruise control the rest of the way. It was the same old story in this game. One team could dominate in the trenches. The other couldn't. If Clemson couldn't win the line of scrimmage, they were in big trouble. And that's exactly what happened. Ohio State vs Tennessee. Buckeyes run over the Vols. And now, for the nightcap of the weekend, Ohio State vs Tennessee. Let me tell you, Ohio State came out with something to prove. Tennessee looked like they were still asleep in the first quarter, getting jumped on by Ohio State to the tune of a 21-0 deficit in no time. It was 42-17 by the end of it, but it honestly could have been worse. The key to Ohio State's success? You guessed it, line play. Their offensive line opened up gaping holes in the Tennessee defense, and Ohio State's running backs were cruising through the secondary. Meanwhile, the Buckeyes' defense put constant pressure on Tennessee QB Nico Iamaleava, sacking him 4 times and forcing him to make poor decisions. By the time Tennessee tried to mount a comeback, it was too late. They just couldn't find their footing in the trenches, and the Buckeyes took full advantage of that. So, what's the deal with all these blowouts? Now, the big question. Why were all these games such blowouts? It comes down to one thing: line play. All 3 of these dominant teams had offensive lines that just pushed around their opponents. Whether it was Texas, Penn State, or Ohio State, the games were decided up front. And once those teams took control of the line of scrimmage, it was game over for the opposition. In today's world of high-flying offenses and flashy quarterbacks, we sometimes forget that football is won in the trenches. You can have the most talented quarterback and skilled wide receivers, but if your offensive and defensive lines aren't up to snuff, you're going to get overwhelmed. And that's exactly what happened in this first round of the college football playoff. What's next? Looking ahead to the quarterfinals, it's safe to say that we'll probably see much more competitive games. On paper, some of the matchups are going to be hard-fought battles, but after seeing these first-round routes, it's clear that if any team can dominate the line of scrimmage, they've got a real shot to go all the way. Well, That's it for our breakdown of the first round of the college football playoff. What did you think of all these blowouts? Who do you think has the best chance to keep it going in the quarterfinals? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I love reading your takes. And if you liked this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. We've got more breakdowns, predictions, and playoff coverage coming your way. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything. Thanks for watching, and keep the football talk going. Click here for more playoff analysis and fun content. See you next time. Hey, football fans, welcome back to the channel. Are you ready to break down the biggest surprises and takeaways from the college football playoffs first round? Well, buckle up because we've got some serious blowouts to talk about. I mean, Texas just wrecked Clemson, and honestly, the whole weekend felt like watching a heavyweight fight where one fighter was just too powerful to lose. Before we dive into the nitty-gritty, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest playoff action and more. Share this video with your friends who love football. And let's break down why these games went exactly the way they did. 1. Texas vs. Clemson. A pattern that's starting to emerge. Alright, let's talk about the biggest game of the weekend, Texas vs. Clemson. Now, Clemson fans, I'm not here to rub it in, but I gotta be real. Texas just dominated this game in a way that's becoming almost too familiar in these college football playoff matchups. And when I say dominated, I mean it was like watching a high school kid face off against a toddler in a tug-of-war competition. Sure, Cade Klubnik tried to make it interesting. I'll give him credit. He's a competitor and kept fighting, even making it a one-score game early in the fourth. But let's be real here. The moment Clemson got to the Texas 5-yard line and faced a critical 3rd and goal, the writing was on the wall. Texas stuffed 3 straight rushes, and that was basically game over. 38-24 Texas advances to the quarterfinals. And I don't think anyone was really shocked. But here's the thing. This game followed a familiar pattern that we saw in the first round of the expanded college football playoff. Think about it. Penn State blew out SMU 38-10. Notre Dame cruised past Indiana 27-17. And Ohio State gave Tennessee a 42-17 beatdown. This is turning into a trend, people. And it's all about winning the line of scrimmage. 2. Why all these blowouts? The secret sauce. Offensive and defensive lines. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, wait, these teams look like juggernauts. Why's the competition so one-sided? Let me break it down. It's because of one simple thing, dominant line play. Forget the flashy QB plays, the bomb throws, and the highlight catches. It all starts in the trenches. And in this first round, the teams that dominated up front ran the show. Let's talk about Texas for a second. On offense, they just bullied Clemson's defensive line. Texas ran for 292 yards to 292 yards. Are you kidding me? Jaden Blue had those 2 insane touchdown runs of 77 and 38 yards. Meanwhile, Clemson, 76 rushing yards total. I mean, how are you supposed to win when you get pushed around like that? But it's not just about the run game. It's also about the defensive line. Texas's defensive front absolutely lived in Clemson's backfield, pressuring Cade Klubnik on almost every single snap. If you watched the game, you saw Klubnik running for his life and getting sacked left and right. Texas's defensive line showed exactly what happens when you control the game from up front. And it wasn't just Texas. Look at Notre Dame against Indiana. They outrushed the Hoosiers 193-63. Penn State did the same thing to SMU with 185 yards to 58. Even Ohio State, which crushed Tennessee, had the same recipe for success: 4 sacks, consistent pressure, and completely neutralizing Tennessee's offense. 3. The College Football Playoff Committee's dilemma: selecting the right teams. Here's where it gets interesting. The College Football Playoff Committee has a tough job. They're the ones who decide who gets in. And with a 12-team playoff coming soon, you'd think this would be easier. Right? Wrong. In the first round, the committee's picks looked questionable when you see how easily some teams were dominated. Now, I'm not trying to bash on Indiana and SMU, but come on. Clemson had more pedigree than both of them, and they got rolled by Texas. And don't get me started on those 2-3-loss SEC teams. Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina. They didn't get into the playoff. But let's be honest, if you put them in against these teams, would they have done better in the trenches? Probably. I mean, Alabama's offensive and defensive lines are typically top tier. Ole Miss has been solid. And South Carolina had a tough schedule but could have matched up physically in these kinds of games. It's a tough pill to swallow for fans of those teams, especially when you see how much line play was a factor in these first-round blowouts. 4. The importance of line play in college football. Here's the deal, in modern football, especially with all the flashy spread offenses and air raid systems, we sometimes forget about the basics, and the basics are line play. At the end of the day, if you can win up front, you're going to win the game. And this first round of the playoff showed us just how important it really is. Let's put it in perspective. You can have the flashiest quarterback or the most talented skill players. But if your O-line can't block and your D-line can't get pressure, you're going to get steamrolled. Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Ohio State all showed that. They controlled the trenches. They ran the ball down their opponents' throats. And they didn't give the other teams a chance to establish their rhythm. It's the foundation of any good football team. And with these teams dominating the line of scrimmage, it's no wonder the games felt non-competitive. So, for all the QB hype, maybe it's time we start paying more attention to the big boys up front. So, there you have it, folks, a first round full of blowouts. And the key takeaway is clear. Win the line of scrimmage. And you're in control. It's a lesson that everyone in the playoff needs to learn. Texas, Notre Dame, Penn State, and Ohio State showed us how important the battle in the trenches really is. What do you think about these blowouts? Did the committee make the right picks? And who's your pick to go all the way this year? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, and I'm pretty sure you did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Let's keep the conversation going. I'll be back soon with more analysis. So make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of it. Stick around for more college football goodness. Click here for more breakdowns, predictions, and analysis. Keep the conversation rolling, and I'll catch you next time.